Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Rivki Kudnovsky and I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Tel Aviv, Israel, where I grew up. I had a beautiful childhood. I was really happy as a child. I used to do a lot of sports, swimming, tennis, dancing. But I remember myself since very young. We used to spend a lot of time, mostly the summer, in a country club in Tel Aviv. And I remember just watching the ladies sitting there where my family used to hang out with, and just looking at the ladies and just thinking, what caused them to smile when they wake up in the morning and what's just making them happy. I'm always passionate to learn behaviors of people. I wanted to be a psychologist before I was aware to Kabbalah. And just, learning people's behavior always fascinated me. And I remember just, being very interested to see, as a child, once you grow up, what really, this was in my mindset. Okay, I'm going to have a house, 2 dogs and a cat and the pool and the 2 cars, and then what? This always was like in my mind, what else? Must be something else, but I couldn't really understand, what is it? My mom introduced me to Kabbalah when I was really young, 16 years old, and to be honest, it didn't make any sense to me. Growing up in Israel, I thought it's another religion, and they're going to make me look a certain way, which I like to be very creative in the way I dress up and everything else, how I look like. And they will just box me, which I don't like. I have Moon in Aries. If you're familiar a little bit with astrology, we are rebel, we have to be super creative, and we don't like when people tell us what to do, that's for sure. So I really thought this is it, because that's what you see, growing up in Israel. And I remember when I picked up the first book I read, it's Wheels of a Soul by my teacher, and also the founder, together with his wife Rav and Karen Berg, together they actually took the decision to bring this amazing, tremendous knowledge called Kabbalah to the masses, to the world, regardless to their faith, background, belief. And I took this book, Wheels of a Soul, and I remember what really struck me were 2 things. That first of all, we can really design our destiny. That I was shocked, and for me it's like, yes, I'm home, finally. I can create it on my own, for all my life, not just like where I'm going to hang out and how I'm going to look like, but actually design my life in the best way I want. And second of all, to really understand the concept of freedom of choice, that again was very important for me. I just didn't understand exactly how to create it. Again, growing up in our society, now more than ever, with social media, things you read and you constantly, and see, you constantly compare yourself to others, and so when I met my teachers, Rav and Karen Berg, I really felt home. And the thought I had, imagine, like back then, it took me time, like at least for 2 years, I just took so many classes. I came to every event, because of my mom. And I was like a sponge. I just took it all in. And when I was 18, I felt, wow, that's really worth dedicate my life to, because I was just so inspired, to just share that knowledge and wisdom with the world. And I already started to see the difference on my life, and I was very passionate to help other people, to become better, improve their life, and literally remove judgment, remove negativity from their life. And that's how I started my path. Already 33 years forward. I think I look at it as a gift to be part of that, for so long. My husband is also a Kabbalah teacher. He speaks 4 different languages. So we are always traveling, moving to places mostly that he can, teach. He's very gifted with the language skill. So myself, before we even met, I lived from Israel. I worked after that in Paris center. Then I moved to New York. I worked in New York Center. Then I moved to Miami, where I started to date my husband. We got married in Los Angeles. We moved back to Miami, then Boca Raton. Then back to Chicago, where my first child, Yehuda, was born. He's now based in New York. Shout out to Yehuda, working in the Kabbalah Center in New York. And then we moved to Mexico, where my second son, Michael, was born. Then back to New York, where my third son, David, was born. Shout out to all my sons. I love you so much. And really, thanks to Kabbalah, I can say I was able to raise my children in the best proactive way, because as you can imagine, and that wasn't the end of our traveling. Let me just finish with the traveling. So after Mexico, we went back to New York. David was born. From New York, we moved to Miami. After Miami, we moved to Moscow. We lived in Moscow. From Moscow, we moved to Sao Paulo, Brazil, then to Toronto, Canada, then to Israel. When we moved to Israel, my first year, I worked in Ghana, in Nigeria. I also went there. It was quite an experience. I really enjoyed it. It was very special. And then for 6.5 years, while we lived in Israel, I worked mostly in the Netherlands, in Holland, where it was beautiful and amazing experience I will never forget. And a little bit in Berlin, a little bit Belgium, and Poland. And my husband worked in Kiev and Spain. And after that, we moved back to Mexico, and then we moved back here last year. And it's a pleasure for us to be back in the US and to work mostly here. We still work in Latin America and Europe. Everything is so global. But you can imagine, especially with kids, and they were young, much younger. Now they're, much older. But when they're, younger, and we moved to literally countries that, other than my husband, we didn't speak Russian, we didn't speak Portuguese, we didn't speak Spanish. And when we moved back to Israel, my kids didn't have the Hebrew for school, even though at home we always kept Hebrew and English. But you can imagine the level of stress and anxieties also as a parent, and the worries. Just to allow them not just to pick up the culture and the language and the studies, that the education that of course was always very important for us, but to also connect to other kids and to be able to express themselves and to have a peaceful childhood where they feel safe and grow, and at the same time develop, of course, with everything that they need. And I have to say that it was a very empowering journey and experience. A lot of people say, wow, you're so privileged, but when they think about the details, like, I don't know how I would able to ever do that, to live in a place where you can't even read the street signs, or you can't even speak with the bus driver or taxi driver. Things become a little bit limited and maybe scary, but I have to say that, we always were very, focused on why are we here. And of course, through the tools and the wisdom of Kabbalah, we were able to get the best out of it. And it was always, together with the challenges, it was always very empowering. And I have to say, of course, the amount of maturity the kids received, and their capability to look at people, to connect with people in relatively a very short time, because they had to be really quick to filter out, how are we different, to relatively really quick to create, okay, yet now that we filter our differences, how can we connect at the same time? And this is a skill that you can only develop when you are forced to do, right? Because naturally, we are always drawn to people that are like us, that also agree with us. We don't want to create any friction. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to face any confrontation, We just want to have a great life, right? So we want to surround ourselves with people that, accept us and like us exactly as we are. But I have to say, it's a very powerful experience to be thrown and being put in, places and situations where, we always knew people from the Kabbalah Center, and that's always our family, of course. We were never alone, but we could feel lonely because, we had to be able to connect. And again, that by itself for me is a gift, because again, growing up in Israel, where the mentality is a little tough, a little aggressive, when it comes to connect to people. And that's how I was brought up. My grandparents from my mom's side went through the Holocaust. And my dad said, my dad was born in Persia, Abadan, and his mom was from Iraq. So I heard, in my dad's family, I heard Arabic and Persian growing up. And my mom was born in Romania, and her dad was from Austria. So I heard a little bit of Romanian, but mostly Yiddish. hanging out with my mom's family. So that was really interesting. It was too much for me. I just kept Hebrew. But just the mentality, because my Persian family ran away from Persia, as Jewish family, they had to leave everything and run, so they came to Israel. And my other side of family, both grandparents went through the Holocaust. So imagine growing up with that kind of mentality was like, you have to make it and you have to be strong enough so nobody hurt you. And that's what I understood. So later on, even while I was studying Kabbalah and learning this profound knowledge and wisdom, that I have to say, it's not religion, it's wisdom and knowledge. That's what got me. I was, very kind of too focused and too direct, and I went through different situations where I just spoke up and maybe I hurt some people, and I wasn't as sensitive and understanding of who's in front of me. And it took me quite, good few years, to say the least, and still learning and developing it, and to really learn at the end of the day. That's something that I had to learn, that it's not just about what is it that I want to say or what I think, and just because I'm right, it doesn't mean that I need to say it or I need to say it right now. And again, it was a long process, and I love this process because it allows you to be so much more real and honest and vulnerable, and definitely more compassionate and sensitive towards your fellow men. And I think that's a secret of peace in the world, peace inside of us. We get so upset from how people talk to us and what they tell us and how we and how it causes us to feel, and then we try to maneuver and we try to manipulate, and this I spent many years of being like my sign is Libra, I'm sorry, so I could be a real justice warrior, and fighting for justice, not only for myself, also for other people. And again, I used to get hurt a lot just by doing that, trying to prove wrong. And guess what? Because if you say, well, this is the absolute truth, you have to say this is all false. And just by fighting justice, you actually create a lot of judgment. And again, it took me a long journey. And again, I'm still, of course, working on it, to really take a strong decision. That's how I want my life to be. I want to create more love, more peace. I drop the things that it's not my movie, it's not my job, it's not my responsibility. And the reason why I'm so passionate to help people is because I really see how people suffer, go through pain, which is unnecessary. There are things that are part of our karma, what Kabbalah called tikkun, things that a soul has to go through, because this is the only way for us to get the lesson. But I really see how we dive into karma that is not ours, movies that it's not necessarily for us to get involved, and we get involved and it affects us and it influences us, and we get into different scenarios and realities that cause us pain and suffering, and then we put so much energy just to fix it and let go and do all that meditations and work and just to heal, where you can prevent it, or you can just get the lesson and move on and just continue with your life, and create and focus on what's really important. So that's my passion, to not just to give and share wisdom, but also to connect. I think as human being, it's easy for us to take. We don't know how to receive. When a new baby is born, the first thing after they're breathing, that they check if the baby is healthy or not. They check if their fists are wide closed, because if the fists of a new baby born are open, there is a problem. So we are born takers, right? When we grow up, what do we hear? Hold your toy, that's yours. If you don't speak, nobody will know who you are. We are, if you want respect, work really hard. If you want recognition at work, make sure they pay attention to you. We learn to take, and it's okay. We need to receive. There's nothing wrong with receiving, but we learn how to take. We don't learn how to allow, whatever you want to call it, the creator, God, a higher level of energy or force to give us. And there's a technology to create it. This is what Kabbalah teach. Kabbalah means to receive, not to become a saint or holy or perfect or angelic. It means how to receive. And it's a whole technology, and there's a way to do it. We can receive blessings, we can receive miracles, we can create it. And that's for me a huge, that's for me my superpower. And I'm just always so excited to share it with anyone who is interested to learn, and is ready to do the work, because everything takes work, just like anything else you create in your life. The other thing that I'm always passionate to work with is definitely to, unpack everything that happens in our life and to really get to the core and the bottom line of it. Because, spiritual work, people think it's meditate or speak with angels. Spiritual work should be very, very accurate, very direct, and very specific. It's not just share with everyone. It's not just be kind. It's not just like meditate and relax. Spiritual work is really like a laser beam. It's so, you don't see it with your eye, but it's so accurate that it can cut a perfect circle in a glass. That's spiritual work. So if you don't understand, about your tikkun, if you don't understand your soul's journey, if you're unable to understand what's your purpose in this lifetime, then things just happen to you and you're just like a leaf in the wind. And really, it doesn't matter how much money you have and how much success or attention you get. It's about understanding and connecting the dots. If you're unable to do it, really, no money in the world will serve that purpose, because you have to be able to sit down and really understand it, like a plan. Where am I coming from? Previous lifetimes as well, and where am I heading to? Of course, in that process, we can create any fortune we want, we can live any life we want. There's no contradiction, but we have to understand reasons. Otherwise, we're just, again, like a leaf in the wind, and things happen to us instead of for us. And that's where I gained my power. I believe each one of us can create that, to gain that power, to gain that ownership, and to really understand what is my fingerprint in this world. Because scientifically, among 8 billion people, there are no two fingerprints that are the same. The same way with us, there is absolutely no one else in the world like you. But if you don't own that, if you don't understand what it is, what is your magic, what is your superpower, nobody else can replace you. And it's not something we are being fed with a spoon. It's something that takes time and journey. And there's a reason for that too that I'm not going to get into right now. But my passion is to help people understand about their tikkun, to unpack it, to help them connect the dots. I love doing it. I use all my power of, being Israeli, growing up without always wanting to see results, save time, unnecessary wasted time. That's in my personality. I'm a very specific person, I'm a very detailed person. I love to strive for the best results possible. So that's what I do with my students, helping them with that, of course, if they're interested with that and they have that desire. So I working on the tikkun with the tool of angels that I learned from my teacher, Karen Berg, how to communicate with them, how to work with them. It's all about work, and you're able to understand their power and specific angels for different things. And, you're able to really use that as a tool, definitely. The other thing that I'm really passionate about is communication. As I described before, we can get hurt or hurt other people really for no reason, really with all the good intentions. And I realized that it's not only what we say, it's also how we hear what people tell us. And I don't need to tell you, but how many times we get hurt from nothing, from even asking coffee and the way they serve us the coffee, or asking for a certain juice or smoothie and the way it came out. Or I hear people that they don't know, as the boss will say, they don't know how to confront the receptionist because they just don't want to hurt her. And it's just little things, between spouses, parents, children, parents-in-law. I have a student that, she suffers so much from her mother-in-law, and she feels so stuck and so controlled by that, because that's the best way to really do our correction around people. So there is a way to communicate in a way of connecting with the person in front of us. Not give a speech, not give you a monologue, even if you prepare in advance. It's about connecting, and connecting is to the heart and to the soul, not to our intellect and to our ego. So most of our conversations, I'm sure you've felt it before, once it's just on an intellectual level, you know, we agree, but we leave empty from that conversation or that relationship, you know. But when we are able to create stronger connection, you know, through our heart and our soul, which is really the difference between empathy and sympathy, that's when we feel we are able to share a message, we are able to really connect to the person in front of us and basically make a difference, you know, even with our own children. So I hope to see you more in my channel. I hope to share so much more wisdom tools, practical tools. I'm super practical, so everything I try to make it very practical and something which you immediate, you know, can start and apply in your life. I would love to hear any comments, any feedback, any experience you're going through. I love to share experiences and energies with people around the globe, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much, and see you soon, and all the blessings, joy and happiness to all of you.